kid, there was a lot of different language around when I would roll my eyes. So I'm trying to be a modern parent about it.
Okay, last question, then we're going to open up to our audience. Who do you go to when you just have exhausted your gut, your neuroscience brain? Who do you go to for advice?
Well, you know, he gets a hearty thank you in the afterword. My ex-husband gets all sorts of terrible phone calls from me with both children crying in the background and me crying too.
Me too. Mine get texts.
And I'm very, no, I mean, I shouldn't say that always happens. But literally, there was an episode about a belt. Someone couldn't find their belt in the house, and it led to tears, and I literally, it was all I could think to do. I also thought the belt might be at his house, and if anyone's divorced, you know what this is like, when there's something beloved that of course,
the back and forth, and then
that's
the only way that I actually feel guilty about the divorce also, because it's you want them to remember to bring their belongings, but then again, it's they have...
He only likes one belt, so I can't even duplicate. Anyway, so I do, but my ex and I, even though we're divorced, we still need to parent these children together, and we still talk about all this. I called him and I was like, why do they keep wanting to watch videos of other people playing video games?
Me too, that's my biggest fight. It's my biggest fight.
What is up?
I say to my kid, why can't you just play the game yourself? Why are you watching somebody else?
Because they want to, that's why. It's very complicated. Anyway, so I called my ex and I was like, what is happening in my house? This is not what I wanted.
I'm speechless because
he doesn't have the answers either, but at least we don't have the answers to him.
And is there any of the book that you also went to him and said, hey,
so I went,
you're a boy?
Well, there are sections in every single chapter called That's What He Said, and I don't reveal, and I don't plan to, which of the males in my life contributed to those, but yes, shaving one's face, I was like, this should be in the book, and I don't know. So, there are certain things that I reached out to other men in my life about, but I think, generally speaking, it really has to be collaborative, and I think even though I'm a mom in a house with 2 boys, and it feels lonely, the whole world is going to educate them if we don't, and if you turn your child over to the internet's going to do what it does. It's going to make them click on things, and it's going to sell them things, and it's going to sell them an image, and we can't stop that. I mean, I've realized that.
How do you monitor it, or do you talk to your kids very openly about that?
We do, and that's where it's really up to each individual family how age appropriate you want to be for different ages. In terms of the things on the internet, we're as concerned with violence and things that you can Google of horrible, violent things on the internet as we are concerned about, sex in particular. So the porn, yes. No, it's true. So, our solution is to limit screen time and to, lock everything up and know what they're doing when we can know what they're doing. Obviously, when they're at the park and when they're places with other kids' phones, I can't control that. And a lot of people think oh, she's a homeschooling hippie, she must keep her children in a bubble. No, they're out there in the world. They really, they are, and they have to be, and that's important too. So again, all we can do is arm them with what it means to be respectful, what it means to think differently about these things. And we've talked, my ex and I have talked about what is that conversation about, explicit material on the internet? And we really think it's important to emphasize that, I know it sounds crazy, but that people are not treated well in industries that are producing that kind of material. And you want to raise children who want to consume things with compassion, whether it's explicit material that they're going to eventually interact with, or whether it's food products or clothing. You want your children to have that consciousness of a bigger responsibility to the world in all arenas.
Okay, well, questions for Maya? Questions. Go ahead. Mitch. Stand up, Mitch.
Not so much a question. I'm hoping to get some help from your book. My son's almost 15, and I'm married to a man, and I'm the alpha male right now, except I've got this other alpha male coming up at me. And I have to say, it's not easy. And the other alpha male, by the way, is not my husband. And my son is, now a full-size man, even though he's not 15 till the end of the month. And I hope your book can help.
I hope so too.
Even though your kids are a couple years younger.
No, and obviously, the book, obviously I'm the mom of a 9.5 and a 12.5-year-old, but no, the book is designed to help you understand kind of that full transition. There's a whole section on the hero's journey, which I think really starts to be very important, especially in those teen years. And I think it's also important to realize we're not, obviously we feel like we're parenting right now and this is what it's like, but we have tens and hundreds of thousands of years of evolution that have led to our boys having desires and having, hormones that run through them for very specific purposes. So I think the challenge is to really try and channel those in ways that are healthy, since they're not going to be out hunting or
Nothing has ever been like my situation.
You might be right.
But the last thing I have to say, because of what's happening this week, Mazel Tov.
Thank you. Hi.
Still in that lovely zone of lots of cuddles and kisses. When can I expect all that to change? What is like the age where you really started becoming conscious of the differences, really?
I think it's going to vary, and my boys are still very, very sweet and tender. In public, it's shifted. I'd say around 9 or 10 for my older one, and then I think because the younger one is, I don't know, he's just different. He wears a leather jacket. He's kind of like, I think it shifted for him. Yeah, from Target. Okay, from Target. It is from Target. Target is not a sponsor of my life, but they should be. We'll be on that. No, but I think. Again, I think it's going to vary, and I think also for me, and I talk about this in the book, knowing when to let that be and not fighting it was really, really important, because I wanted to hold on with my death grip of love, if I love you hard enough, you will never leave me. And I realized, oh wait, that's my issue, and you really, as moms of boys in particular, we have to release that. And sometimes I'll watch them walk out the door and I'm like, one day they're gonna walk out forever. But I hope that I'm raising them to pick a spouse who wants to hang out with me. That's really the goal.
That's a good goal.
That's how we bring them back.
Thank you. Go ahead, question.
And a lot of baking products, that keeps them happy. I bake a lot.
Hi, Mayim. Do you think that boys today are being crucified because of the Me Too movement? Classification of boys.
Wow. She made it into a construct verb. I think the short answer is no. I think that we are walking a very fine line right now between wanting our boys to be sensitive and respectful, and not wanting them to be themselves. And I think it's important, especially if you have, boys who already have that testosterone that works in their body. It is normal for boys to be aggressive, and it is normal for boys to be combative sometimes, obviously within reason. This is part of their exploratory behavior. And boys, there's a whole section, boys have a strong need to conquer and to win. And that's very, very important. However, conquering and winning sexual conquests is no longer and never should have been acceptable. And I think that's really, I think that's important. And I think, part of it is that I don't even want to say obsession, video games is a wonderful way to virtually win and conquer. But the question is, how does that get translated into behavior? And I think it's also really important to realize that if the new generation of men is a generation of men that behave respectfully and kindly, I'm all for that. And I also think there's still room for them to still behave, quote, like men. But I think our concept of what men are supposed to behave like is really shifting. And in many cases, it needs to.
Up there. Go ahead. Yell. Sorry. Yell it. Let's yell.
He's coming.
My question is, today kids are so busy with their schedule, New York, and sometimes you feel as a mom, they don't even need you. You're a caterer, you're a driver, you're a housekeeper. So how does a 21st century mom keeps it going with the sweet moments and the intimacy that they still need a mom in their life because they're so busy, they're cornered in their iPhone, iTouch, iPad, you know?
It's a really great question. I like the way you described it. It's like they're so busy. You know, that's like an adult thing, but it feels in so many ways like my 12-and-a-half-year-old, he has like an adult schedule. You know, that's what it feels like. Right, like, and it's true. I'm basically...
How do you manage that?
Well, so I'm basically like, and this has really shifted in the last, I'd say 2 years. I basically feel like an overqualified chauffeur, you know? Like, it doesn't, like, no one's asking me, because I have to be a grown-up, no one's asking me if I want to drive to 2 soccer games a day. No one asked me. They want to do soccer, so this is, like, my week is gone, you know, and I'm like, woe is me. My first world problems are like, my children have too many soccer practices. But I think you make a really important point that even though life is so much busier, even though we are so much busier, and most of us come from houses either with one parent or with 2 working parents, right? They are still humans, they are still primates, and they are still children. And I think even when our boys become teenagers, there's a child in there. I mean, that's absolutely true. Some of the things that we do, obviously limiting screen time, like at the dinner table, when we're out at dinner, the answer is no. The answer is no. And if they sit there and pout, that's fine too. It's showing them that humans interact. That's what we do. We are mammals. We need to interact. Social interaction is super important in those years, even if they're just observing it. So that's one thing. And the other thing that we do, I enforce board games. I enforce family game night. And even if it's just playing cards, even if one's grumpy and just watching the other 2 of us play, we do it. We learned how to play canasta. That's right, it's the 20s. We learned how to play canasta.
Okay, Grandma.
My older son, I think, was born 65, so he loves it. And another thing which may not be popular with everyone's child, but which still works for mine, we still sometimes read books before bed together. The books that they loved when they were little, they still love. And that's the way you know if it's a good kid's book, is if your kid still wants to hear it at 12. Obviously,
They fight you at first and now it's fun for them?
yeah, at first it's like, you know, the eye rolling and like, oh, your eyes are gonna stick that way. But yeah, I've made it more of a routine as they pull away more because it's bringing them back. And, you know, as a person who shared a bed with her kids for longer than anyone was comfortable, except our family of pediatrician, bedtime is really, really special. Those moments before a child goes into, you know, whatever spiritual experience you believe sleep is, those are really precious moments. So even on the nights that we don't read a book, even if they don't feel like saying it back, I tell them, I love you so much. There's